start off by looking at the materials that we're going to use. I've got them all here so that you can have a look. Now, the first thing we need to have for this particular painting, really important, is masking fluid. And I'm going to use this fine, thin blue masking fluid that I like so much. I want to be able to see it on the paper and I want to be able to use it with real finesse. So masking fluid, and to go with that we'll need a little bar of soap so that we can protect our brushes. I'm going to take the paper down with this, and I'm also going to use this tape as a border, so more about that in a moment. The colours, really limited palette today. I have permanent magenta and sap green, and I'm using permanent sap green because some of these colours are not as light fast as they should be, so this one is permanent. And one of my favourites, this is Daniel Smith, and it's Cascade Green. Absolutely love that with a passion. That bleeds into blues and browns, so I'll show you that when we get stuck into it. Supplementary to those, and in minuscule quantities, I'm going to use a teeny tiny bit of Opera Rose, and I will probably need a smidgen of Payne's Grey. So I'm going to use this out of a palette that I've got for another job. I need so little, so I don't really want to pop it out on here. So teeny tiny bit of Payne's Grey. And I will be needing something like a yellow. I'm going to use quinacridone gold. You just use any yellow that you might have in your palette. This is only for the bumblebee. That's all you'll need it for. Just one brushful. I mean, you could literally just take it out of the top of a tube. But I'm not telling anybody that I said that. You won't rat on me, will you? That is very bad practice. But okay, that's all there and ready to go. Brush wise, there's a number 8. I want to have out my 6 as well, and my 4, and I might be thinking about something in between those, probably not, but I think I'm definitely going to be needing my rigger brush and something to scratch with. So this is my good old favourite porcupine quill. You don't have to have that, you could have something like an orange stick, but I want something that I'm going to hurt the paper with. More about that later. Some of my students actually sharpen the end of one of their brushes so that they can just turn it round and use that to scratch. So that's quite a good idea, but I would advise you not to go using that to scratch anything else like your face afterwards, because you could land up with A, paint on you, and B, hurt. So they're there, ready for me. Now I want paper wise, I'm using Moulin du Roi, beautiful cotton paper. It's quite robust, which is unusual, and it's not too thirsty because it has a very good sizing on it. It has no brighteners, no whiteners, no gelatin coated on top of it, nothing. It's just beautiful paper. I don't know what they do use for the sizing, but it's very nice. One side of the paper has this rough texture, so it's not. And all that means is it's not hot pressed, so it's not. And the other side is beautifully smooth. So if you buy the rough paper, this one, this is the not, you get the benefit of both of those, and I've found that they both paint just as well as each other. Beautiful decal edges, if you didn't want to, cut your edges and have a frame. But beautiful paper. Moulin du Roi, so called, that's the name of the mill that it's made on. And unlike many of the mills, this one is a cylindrical mill that makes the paper. It doesn't have anything on the rollers, so the rollers literally polish the paper as they turn. And it gives you these beautiful, gorgeous, I love it, I really do love it. And I'm going to use it for the picture we have here, and I just want to tape it down. I don't need to use a lot of tape because, or by that I mean I don't have to come into the picture too far, because I'm not going right up to the edges to paint. And I'm just going to come in here and tape it down like this to make life easy for myself so that it's not skittering about all over the place. Don't want that. So just do that and it will keep it steady for you. There we are. If I was doing watercolour right up to the edges, I would use 1/3 of that tape on the paper to make sure that it stays put. But in this instance, I don't need to. Now the other thing I want to do here is I'm going to give myself a border. This painting originally came from my sketch journal. This is my nature journal, and this was the page that I had in my nature journal, and I'd like to use this to reproduce what we're doing today, this kind of idea. I'm not going to add this and the bits and pieces, but we can have a bit of a splish, we can put the lettering in and we can write down what we need to down here, but I just want to give you the idea of where we're going with it. And to get this border, I'm going to use my tape. Let's get that out of the way, make sure that no water gets onto it. So I've marked my paper out. I've come 4 centimetres, this is A4, and I've come 4 centimetres in on each side. So I'm going to measure my tape, and I don't want to put it down as it is, it's too sticky. And the odds are on cotton paper, it could hurt it. And I don't want that to be the case. I don't want it to tear. So I have a cloth and I'm going to really give it some on the cloth, look. Get rid of some of the tack. Some people, gentlemen, on your trousers, ladies, on your trousers or skirt, but whatever you do, let's get rid of some of that tackiness. Don't want it to damage my paper. And then I'm going to use my guidelines, so there's one, there's the other, and I just want to bring that down and through, like that. And I'm not going to, I don't need to stick the whole thing, it's just the edge I'm interested in. So let's do this one down here. So lots and lots of untack. There we are, that's all done. Now it's worth noting that I have left my bottom margin a little bit larger than the top, and this is something that picture framers will do. They will give you a larger bottom rather than a larger top, because it's just more pleasing and more balanced to look at in the frame. And so consequently just a little bit larger here, and it really works a treat. To start off with, we're just going to think about laying in the palest colours. We'll put the background in, and we're just going to put 3 pink blobs, and it's as simple as that, 3 pink blobs, and then colour around the outsides of those. And I'm taking my larger brush here, so this is my number 8, and I want to come in. If I bring that over there, and I'm just going to tighten you up a little bit so that you're a little closer to me, because you don't need to see, do you, everything that's around the periphery, just this here. And I'm thinking about using this lovely magenta colour, this permanent magenta, and I don't want it to be too colourful, do I? So I just want to make a vague wash of that, and I'm going to do the same with the sap green. And this is the cascade green. And the first thing I want to do is just wet my paper, because I don't want it to be too thirsty and swallow all of the water and the paint in one go. I don't want brush marks on this necessarily, not yet. I will do in a minute, but not quite yet. And by putting water on my paper, it means that I get a little bit of thinking time. So it's all shiny. That is all shiny. I want my first big blossom to be in here, so I'm going to drop my colour in here. I'm going to add some of this rather lovely opera rose into that as well. And it's got to be quite pale, everybody. Don't be frightened of it. Quite pale. There we go. And then I want to come through here and be popping in another one here. And then I'd like one over here as well. And again, I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the opera rose. And the reason for this is just because it's a little bit lighter. It's got this amazing kind of fluorescence in it, and it just sings. It lifts it. That's all. Now for the rest of it, I'd like to have some light through here. So this is the rather lovely sap green. So just bringing the light area in through there. And then I think I'd like some light through here. Notice the colours aren't interfering with each other too much, so that's jolly good. Quite happy with that. And then I want to, I'm just picking up all that drips through there. And then I want to come into the Cascade green, and I'm going in heavier with this. And I'm pulling that through and around the areas that I haven't done, like this. Let it bleed in, quite happy for it to do that. Pull it through here. And this is one of those pictures that if you do get cauliflowers and runs, it really, really does not matter at all, not a jot. Now it's a very, very good practice to be a little bit darker around the edges, around the corners. So I'm just putting a little bit more colour into that, and a little bit over here. And then I'm giving that a rinse, and I want to get hold of my pokey proddy stick thing, and I'm going to bring this up and through, and in damaging the paper it means that the paint runs into this, into the hurt, if you like, and it makes it look like grasses. It comes up darker. It's really quite a clever little ploy. I just want some grasses. I'm not interfering with this area too much. Put it up and through, one through this way and then one through that way, so that it cuddles it. We'll have some shorter ones down here, shall we? I think that we could probably get away with a bit more darkness down here. I'm going to just drop a little bit more of that in there. It's still all wet and shiny, so I'm still able to play. So this is the key. And I'd like a little bit through there. Now, wait. We're all still very, very wet. I've got quite a puddle going on in the middle down through here, so I'm keeping my eye on that. Can mop it out a little bit. Now, just wait, patient bunnies, because I'm waiting for that stage when I know I can go in there and I can introduce some more colour, and because it's not too wet, it will hold it. So I'm just waiting, and I'm intending to run through a few painted leaves, and I'd also like to do the stalks and the stems. So this is my plan. And I won't need that huge brush to do it. I will be coming down a couple of sizes, and I'll be thinking about using the number 4 for this. Can you see whilst we're waiting how the blue bleeds away from this colour? That's it there in the palette. And can you see, if I bring you in tight, how the blue has bled away? Here, look at that. That's phthalo blue, and it's actually mixed with raw sienna, and the two colours fight each other. One's very, very light pigment, one is a very heavy pigment, and the two separate and divide, and it gives you this wonderful, wonderful kind of affair. Let me move it so that you can see it, where they granulate. Can you see? You can actually see the two colours there. Look at that. And that's evident when you look at this that the heavier pigment has fallen down into the nooks, crannies in the paper, leaving just the blue. It's very obvious over here as well. Look at that. You can see the blue and then you can see the brown. This is Daniel Smith's Cascade Green, and I think it is one of the most beautiful colours for this kind of incredible effect. Very, very useful for us as artists. Very useful. So how are we doing? I think we're getting there. I'm going to come in with my Cascade Green, and this is all really still quite wet, but when I pull my leaves up through here, it diffuses softly, but it still stays there, so you can see that we've got some leaves, grasses. Bring one up through there. And because it is so soft and diffused, it makes it look as though it's far away. It's further away. And this is just what we want. That's how you get trees and things to be in the distance, to be further away, is to use them and to put them on when your paper's at this stage. Now, this is also a good stage to come in now with our sap green, because I want to come into my globes of flower, and I'm going to just run this sap green down through here, because that is going to be the stem for this. I'm going to put one up behind, as though there might be one up behind this, and then I'm going to use sap green and Cascade Green together on the brush, and I want to bring one big leaf up through here, both those colours together. And because I had both of the colours on the brush, you can see that I have, fortunately, it doesn't always happen, but fortunately you can see here that I do have a light edge and a dark edge. So that's just what we're looking for. Now my next job here is to get that dried. There we are, what do we think of that? I'll tell you what is really worth noting is that watercolour is a real stinker. It will always dry up lighter, up to a third lighter. And so if you want impact there in the first instance, you've really got to go for it. But as far as I'm concerned, this pale pink here is absolutely fine, because I know that I'm looking for that first colour, the highlight colour this is going to be, because of course with watercolour we always work from the light through to the dark. Now I don't need these anymore, they can come off, and if you pull them away from your work, don't pull them in, because if it does tear the paper, of course it's going to take your beautiful work with it. So I'm going to pull it away like that, gently, gently. Oh, do you know, I'm surprised, I wasn't quite convinced that I would get quite such a nice sharp edge, so I'm quite pleased with that. Depends on your paper, because if your paper of course is very, very lumpy bumpy, it's going to go underneath, you've got to watch it, but it doesn't matter. I've got a bit of a splatter there, but it's not the end of the world. I shall worry about that, and we can perhaps do our splatter up through there, doesn't matter. I'm pleased with that, everybody, that's fabulous. Okay, so the next thing we need to do now is seriously think about our masking. This is the whole key to this painting, is how good we are with our masking fluid. So trust me, it's really important. I want this, and I want my soap, and I'm going to use, this is a little nylon brush that I like to use for masking fluid. It's an SAA masking fluid brush. It's the large one, and it's going to be absolutely perfect for what we're doing here today. And I'm coming into this, and I'm going to load my brush with soap, but I don't want too many bubbles, because bubbles will affect the way it works. Believe it or not, the bubbles burst and then the paint goes through into the middle of the bubble, so it gives you grief. Now we're going to paint some flowers, and what happens here is each flower has 6 petals, and the shape is all important. You put your brush down thin, press, lift off. Let me bring you in. I'm going to bring you in so that you can see what I'm doing. So again, put your brush on the paper, press and lift off, and that gives you this beautiful petal shape. So lightly press, lift. In, press, lift. 1, 2, 3, 4. And each time I'm doing that, I'm going back to the masking fluid and loading up again. Alright, so in, press, out. And it's really important that you kind of make them winky and wonky. I want to have some kind of going through each other like this. So here's the middle of the next one. I'm coming in, press, lift, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. That's going to go underneath that one. And keep your shape rounded. So I'm going to continue with this, and I'm going to interlock them so that some of them go in between the petals of the others. Don't make them too small. I've made that mistake before and I didn't like it. So actually, larger petals and larger florets will give you a better picture. So just keep working round. So I think I could put another one in there, because then that petal will go in there. And then that one will go underneath that one. There you go. Watch your control of the masking fluid so that you're getting enough on the paper. And then if I could put another one in there, couldn't I? So press, lift off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there you go. So I'm going to carry on working, and I'll come back to you when I have my flower marked out. Okay, I'm getting there. It's worth noting that around the edges of your ball you will maybe only see some of the petals. Just drop in 1 or 2 here, there, like that. And then I want to imagine from the centre of this flower, from the centre, you have the stalks and the stems coming out through the middle, and they all radiate from that centre. I'm painting them over the petals, over everything, to give the impression that we have all of those little stalks coming up through the middle of that ball, like that. So I'm just using the rigger brush to do that. And then on the edges of this you will have these gorgeous little, every flower has got these gorgeous little stamens. So I want them to come out into the outer edge of this ball. So this flower that I've painted sideways on, this will have these lovely stamens coming out like this. And then you will have stamens coming out from other flowers that are within this bundle. So here again, put these in. So drop some of these in where you can. Here's another flower, so let's have some coming out, radiating out from this one. There's another flower here, so I'm going to bring those out into the background like that. I'll bring you close in a second so that you can get an idea of what I've been up to. And then I want some coming out from these outer edges. So these flowers are behind, but you're seeing these lovely long stamens coming out and through in groups like this. Can you see that group? Here we go. So down here, where the camera is at the moment, there's a flower maybe up there or around the other side, and all you're seeing is this here. So we're going to put some of those in. Alright, because we're going to put another layer of colour on, and that is going to be behind this. I'll show you in a sec. That flower will have some stamens there. So we're getting there. Now we've done that, but we also need to do some of that over here. And so over here I've laid in just a couple of petals, that's all, just a few. If we do too much we bring it forward, and I don't want to do that. So in here I want to give the impression of some stamens through there as well, and some out on the edge. Always does you good to be out on the edge, you know. Now some on the other side. I've done the same over here, just a few flowers, and I just want to bring a few stamens out like this. Not a lot, but just a few. Alright, and that's all we need to worry about really at the moment. The other thing we need to have a think about whilst we're at this stage is where on earth would we be thinking about putting our bee? So I've soaked this brush and I'm going to come in here and I want him somewhere down here. So I'm looking at it, ignoring the original, it's not important at the moment, thinking about where I might want to put him this time. And I think I'd like him to stand out a little bit more, because he didn't on the original. This is a very light area here, so that would do it, wouldn't it? So I've got a D shape there. Let me bring you in again, hang on. So I want this little D shape, that's his head, and then I'd be thinking about a little round body, like that. And I don't need any more than that, because the wings, we will be worrying about painting those on top. So don't worry about those. I think that's where I'm going to put him. He could have gone in here, or that's a nice area there. If I was thinking about this up here, it's all a bit dark. I don't know, I'm not so convinced. He could have gone in this lighter area here, or here might be a good plan. So pop that wherever you think is appropriate. So that brush can go away for a minute, and what we're going to do now is think about our next move. So we want to put another layer of colour on this, darker, more exciting, and we want to start putting the shadows in, which will make these stand out. Because these petals now are going to stay this very, very pale, pale pink, and we need to make them stand out by putting a darker colour behind. Therefore, everyone, I'm coming back into my purple, this lovely magenta, and I am going to be naughty. I'm going to take some and I'm going to mix it into the green, which sounds a very radical thing to do, but I want that sludgy sort of brownish colour there. What does that look like? Let's have a little squiz. See, I don't think that's green enough, that's too purple. So I'm pulling that over here to there. That's it. I want that kind of colour, maybe even a bit more green. There, look. Darker green, okay? So these are nice colours that I can use for my shadows. That will work. Right, you ready? What we're going to do is be brave and fearless, and all around the edge of our flower we're just going to put water. And that will ensure that we don't land up with hard edge. So just water in there. And then I'm going to pick up the dark magenta and I'm going to throw that in there. Not literally. And with that water, bring it out into the water area so that we can see the masking fluid. I'm covering my masking fluid. And I want to rinse and then come into it. Be polite. Come into it from the side that you're blending. Don't go into the colour and push it out. Now you will get a bit of a halo, and that's fine. We want that, it's fine. So same applies down here. I'm coming into that area with some water. Oh, watch that. So watch your edges here, everybody. Not like me, not thinking, duh. And I want to drop in my darker magenta, like that. If there's any risk that you're going to do that, leave your tape on there. Alright? Because that was a moment of not thinking. And it happens. We're not all infallible, are we? And we're not all brilliant, so that it happens. There you go. I'm going to put that in there. Should we drop another little bit of, I tell you what we'll do. How about, let me just blend that. I want to come in from the outside and do that. And do it there as well, like that. How about dropping in another bit of this rather gorgeous ochre rose? Just throw it in. Nudge it, budge it, smudge it. And then I'm going to do the same up here with this. Put some in there. And as I say, on this particular job, cauliflowers I'm not interested. It doesn't matter, because that will give you that halo around the edge of the flower, and that's just gorgeous. Now the green that we made, this funny kind of sludgy grey green, I want to drop that into some of these areas whilst that's all still wet. So this underside is the dark side. So let's just think about where we might be dropping some of that. Just smudging it around, knocking it around like that. And then I want some greener edges to this here, a bit more green for the shadows. And you can, as long as it's all shiny and it's still wet, you can manipulate it, that's fine, absolutely fine. And then I'm going to mix some of my magenta with some of my Cascade green, which will give me quite a dark green, and I'm going to feed that into just a few areas to give myself some real shaded bits and pieces into the heart of the flower. So don't do a lot of that, but I think it's really good. There we are. I haven't put too much dark in. I do need to add just a teeny tiny little bit now over here in these areas. So I'm just going to drop a little bit of water down and then take the darker colour and just smudge it in just a little bit and just nudge and budge like that. And then I want a teeny bit over here as well. I'm just going to pick that up and drop that in there like that. And I can tighten up and smarten up my edges just with a little bit of water like this. Always, as I said, come in to the colour that you're going to blend. Don't pull it out. I can't do that. If I pull it out, I make a mess, and that's the end of it every time. I know me, I know what I'm like. Okay, so I'm going to tighten it up and bring you back in a little closer again so that we can see this flower. And I want to put some real darks in here now. And this is where I'm going to just pick up on a little bit of my I mean, this is really dark, isn't it? But this is Payne's Grey, and I just want to come into a few areas and just drop it in, because what we've got to remember is our bee is going to be black. We've got a little bumblebee who's got a black bottom, and to be able to do that we need to put that colour in a few other places in the picture. Otherwise it will look most peculiar. It'll be unbalanced, and I don't want that to happen. So I need some dark just hither and yon in little areas like this to give that centre of that plant a real bit of depth in here. So that's all. Don't really want very much more than that. If anything just needs softening up, you can go in with a damp brush and just move it around and zhuzh it about, that's okay. And then I think I'm going to do the same thing with the solid magenta, the dark magenta. I just want to put a few little areas again in the middle of the flower that are the dark dark colour. Just again to give it some depth. A little bit there maybe, and I might add a little bit in there and some around here perhaps. I need to break up some of this, it's a bit all or nothing, isn't it? So I'm just going to lay some darker colour in there, scumbling it in. Just scumbling it in to make it look more interesting. And again we can soften that up by wetting the brush and just coming in with a damp brush. So it's only just wet. I don't ever come away from my water pot without bang bang on my cloth to take the extra water away, and then when I do that, you see, it just softens it all up, just gentles it all, and that's what we want to do. Now, whilst that has a little bit of a dry, we can come back down into this stem and maybe into this leaf down here, and all I'm going to do there is come back with my rather nice sap green. I'm using the number 4 here, and I want to come down the sap green, one edge of it, the darker edge of it, and tighten it up. Rinse, dab, dab, and then just stroke it. So don't fluffy brush it, just stroke it. Alright, and then we're going to do the same just with a bit of this, and I'll show you why. If I come into that and I just run it up that edge, rinse, dab, dab, and soften, and then run it back and pull that to infinity. This is close to us, and then suddenly it just wanders off, it just vanishes, and that's what we want it to do. We just want to push it back. This leaf here, go back to the sap green, and I want to come into this edge of it, and I'm going to lay in the darker colour like that. Stop there, rinse, dab, dab, and then I want to just run that brush along, and then when I get to there, I'm just going to carry on pulling it, pulling it, pulling it, so that it just vanishes. And then if I come back into the sap green and I just put a little bit around this edge here, just a little bit, dab, dab, come in and just smooth and blend. And then that, so this is close to us, goes away a bit into the mist and then comes back out towards us again. And that's how you get that kind of movement and that undulating feeling. They need to dry now before I can do anything else. So let me just put the hairdryer on it all. Right, to give our leaves even a little more oomph, I want to come back into them now, and I'm going to add some of the darker colour. So this is the Cascade Green, and I want to come down this stem. So I'm not going to come right next to this, I'm going to come through about here. Follow the same line, follow it, follow it, follow it. Rinse, dab, dab, and then again come down and soften one edge, just one edge. So we leave one hard edge, one soft edge. Just stroke it like that. And I want to do something in the same vein along here. So again, back to this here, to the Cascade Green. And I'm not running it right next to it, I'm coming in a little bit. I want to run down. Make sure your hand can run free for this. I'm going to stop there because I really like that bit of shattered. Let me show you, come out a little bit. I'm just going to stop there because I like the way this is shattered and blurred. I'm just going to come down and soften that edge. Like that. There we go. And it kind of gives you a crease and a vein up the leaf, doesn't it? So that's fine, happy with that. I don't want to do too much more with this. We might just do a little hint of that through there. It gives our eye a little bit of interest, something to look at. When you get to the end of it, just pull it to infinity until it's gone away and it's faded away. That will be adequate. You don't need to do any more than that at all. So time has come, everybody, now to lift off our masking fluid and see what we've got. I'm going to use this really rather crazy little bit of tool here. It looks like the bottom of plimsolls, doesn't it? But it's very good. It's a mask away, and if you just run it over the masking fluid, it saves your poor old fingers, otherwise you're rubbing away. And some of the bigger pictures I do, that's agony. So through here, gently, gently. The other good thing, of course, is it doesn't throw it all over the floor. You land up with it on the mask away, and you can just pick it away and ping it. Available from the SAA. Now, coming through here, I want to just gently, gently take all this away. Ooh, it's exciting, look at that. And we're taking it right back now to that lovely original pink, and this is where it all starts to sing, and where your previous work and your previous accuracy will show now. So you see, I'm just going to pick that off, throw it away, and we've got this gorgeous clear pale pink singing its heart out in the middle of the flower, and that is just so exciting. And this is why I love masking fluid, and it's all down to you and your accuracy in the first instance. If you make a mess of that and you make it fluffy, when you do this, that's going to look dreadful. Alright, it's just a word of warning. The next thing I want to do here is take another small rough brush, and I'm going to soap up, because we're coming back to the old masking fluid. And what I want to do here is drop in the centres of each little flower. They have little green centres, these, and they're wibbly wobbly, they're bobbly. So again, I'm going to bring you in so that you can see what I'm playing at. They've got 3 lobes, 1, 2, 3 lobes. So in the middle of each flower, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So just go round the flowers that you can see, the definite flowers. And then anything that's on the outside here, 1, 2, 3. So that we've still got that, but we've got one kind of on the top edge. 1, 2, 3. And that is going to be the lovely little centres of all my flowers. It'll be this delicate, delicate green. And we can use the sap green for that as well. So just go around it like that. I can't see any more really. I've got a petal in the middle there somewhere, so I think I might just give the hint of something in there. There's nothing really going on around here. That's my bee. And I've got enough that I could just, you know, drop that in there. 1, 2, 3. That'll do. So now I have to dry that. The reason why we went to all that trouble is because we're now going to put a little bit of shading into the middle of our flowers. It will give the impression that each petal is dipping into the middle of the flower, and I want to put the shadow in this area. And we're simply going to lift some of our magenta, and I'm going to come into the middle of each flower, and I want to drop in the colour like that. Rinse your cloth, your brush, dab, dab, and then coming in around the edges like that, we're going to gentle that off. So we'll do that now for every flower. So just come in around the middle like that, rinse, dab, dab, and come in and just soften. But you have to come into the paint. I know it's a fiddle, and if it's easier for you, it's fine to turn your work around as you go. You know, if it's easier to come in from the bottom, turn your work upside down. So do what you can do, and then turn it round and do it that way. There we go. You're practically pushing the paint back really on itself into there. And this will make such a difference because it will give your flowers that kind of 3D feeling. And that's what we want. And don't go too dark because it's easier See, that's too dark. It's easier to come back and do it again than it is to take it out. And that's particularly true of working with this very, very delicate cotton paper. If I was working with a good old Bockingford, you could do almost anything to that. Put it in the bath and start again if you like. But I don't think I'd want to be as brave with paper like this. Cotton's greedy. If you compare cotton paper and paper that's made with wood chip to something like a turtle mat doormat, cotton, which is very, very absorbent, and a nylon doormat, if you came in with wet feet from outside and you stepped onto the cotton doormat, it would absorb all the liquid and you'd walk across the floor and you wouldn't leave any marks. If you do that on a nylon doormat, imagine that's your Bockingford, you would still have wet feet to walk across the floor because it just doesn't absorb. So this is where we've got to know our papers. It makes such a difference what you use. And you get used to one, and if you like it and if it does what you want it to do, stick with it. I have for most of my career, but this today I thought we'd try something different just because I wanted to try something different. Because of course not all of you work with the Bockingford that I do, so we thought we'd try and see how this was. And actually we're going so far, we're doing all right. I quite like the kind of blossoming that I've got around the edge of my flower, and that was quite inadvertent. I didn't realise that was going to happen. That's happened because of the paper I'm using. That wouldn't have happened on my boring old Bockingford, but actually for what I'm doing, that's worked a treat. And that's because the paper was dry on the outside and the wet has run into the dry, and it's created what we would call cauliflowers. And in this instance, it's fabulous. It's great. And imagine that if you were doing something like a dandelion. How cool would that be? That would work well. So it's knowing your products, knowing what you're working with. And I like that very much. And of course it's given me that blue edge from this rather wonderful Cascade green. It's pulled blue out of the paper. So who would have known? We've learnt something, you and me, together today. And that's really good. And to do it here with you is rather special because then we're all learning together, aren't we? Not all of us know everything. Don't want to. Half the fun is the exploring. So how's that? That's working. Wow, pleased with that. So now I just want to gently, these are so tiny, a bit more water, come into those on the outer edge there. And I'm going to try my luck and do that one too. Just gently. Not too much detail out here on the outer limits. There we go. And I'm just going to soften that. Just soften it. Because if I leave it spiky, it comes forward. Don't want it to do that. Now the only other thing I would say is have a little look at what you've got and decide whether there's anything that you want behind anything else. And I haven't got much with regard to that, but there's just one, and that's this mess in the middle. So I'm imagining I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6 petals probably out here. So this flower underneath is definitely going to be darker. I need to hide it, just to make a bit of sense of what's going on in that middle there. I've put that flower down behind and I've got petals just over one on top of the other, so the one that's underneath, I'm just going to make that a little bit darker so that it makes sense. This petal's going underneath this one, so again, edge it. This petal is going underneath this one. Well, I think it is. I could have done it the other way around, doesn't matter. But just get one on top of the other so that it makes sense to your eye when you're watching. when you're looking at it. What's going on here? I'm just going to divide those. And the rest of it, I think I'm all right. This one is going in underneath this. So I'm going to just blank that in too. All right, I don't like that big white flat petal there, so I'm just going to put a bit of colour on the bottom there. And this, little bit of shade there. This one, bit of shade there, and probably something there. That'll do. Just to get the undulation of the petals themselves. So that's fine, all right. Now we've done that, I want to look at it and think now about some of this is where we're going next, and with the centres with the green. And I think it's a good time now to get and dry that so that we can put the green centres in. Let's take the rest of this mask away now. So we should have lovely white clear centres to our flowers. Yes, we do. And I must say this paper's holding up very, very well to masking fluid, because some of them are traumatised by it and won't have it. So in actual fact, this has worked out very well for us today. And now I want to put those little tiny middles in, and we're just going to use our sap green for that, but the palest sap green now. Just thin colour. So there we go. And just pop that on like this. Anything round here? I think I might put something in there. And in there. There we are. Just dropping in this beautiful pale green into these lobed, tri-lobed centres. They'll of course eventually be the seeds. When the petals are all gone, you get left with lovely seed heads with alliums, and they're quite exciting to bring indoors as well and put in a vase. You don't need water, they just last for ages and ages. So I'm going to put that in like that. That's really good, happy with that. And then the next thing we need to be thinking about is all these lovely little frilly bits. Well, we've got the white ones, and that's super duper, and we can see that, and they show up. But now we need to have some in this rather gorgeous magenta. So I'm using my rigger brush, and I'm going to load my rigger brush with colour. And then I'm coming in, and in these areas outside here, I'm running some of these extras like this. Got to imagine that there are flowers up underneath, and they're poking their little beautiful stamens out like this. They all radiate out from the middle. So, and they're quite pendulous, so these that are on the sides hang down. So it's always a good idea to, when you're doing anything like this, to just really study your subject before you get into painting it, so that you know exactly what the thing is doing. This is cack-handed, isn't it? So I'm going to really be in Tricksville trying to do this. I'm going to move my stool round so that I can get the angle right. This is what I was saying about if it's easier for you, move things around for yourself. So you've got this kind of this feeling of it flowing out and falling. There we go. So we've got some in pink, that's really good. I think I might like to throw a couple of pink ones somewhere through the middle like this, as though something's sticking out from in between, like that. Just paint it over everything just to get the feeling of this fluffiness. So that's really rather good. This is all a bit boring in here. So in there's a flower, and it is shedding its little stamens out through there. So we have that colour. Now we want some dark ones, and this time I'm going to go in for I'm going to mix up my green. This is the Cascade green with some of this purple. It makes this really dark colour. And with that, I want to just pop in another layer like this. Just one or two. Something through here. You see how you're giving it all depth. The whole time you're adding another layer and another layer. Some out over there. We need something here, don't we, in this really difficult area to get at. There we go. Now some of these are going to have little bits of pollen on them. So we're going to do some on the black ones. Well, say black, I know it's not black, but near as can be. And look at that. Suddenly you've got a bit of delicacy in there, haven't you? So why don't we do that as well to some of these lovely mauve ones that we've got on here. I'm going back to my... See, that's worked. So as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. That means on some of these now I will play the same game. I knew I wanted them on the dark ones, but now that means I can drop them in here because I like the feel of it. It feels right, it looks right. So we get some of those in there like that. But what about the middle, I hear you say? Well, watch this space. Now, if you would like to paint the next bit, that is absolutely fine, but I'm going to choose a pen. This is a Kuretake water-based pen. It's what they call a Mangaka 01. Lovely fine nib. Lovely fine nib. And with this, I'm going to come into the centres of my flowers, and we have these 3 lobes, and each lobe has a dip in it. 1, 2, they're like little miniature M's, look. M's, little baby bottoms, look. And we're going to quickly put those in. That looks better, doesn't it? But please note, I'm not doing these. I'm not going to touch those. I want them to be away, out of the way, further back. Nothing to do with what we're doing here. But what I am going to do from the centre of these flowers, these two have their stamens like this, but you're not going to see them if we're doing them white against the colour of the petals. So in this instance, I don't want to do all of them necessarily, but I'm going to bring some of them are going to have these lovely, and some little dots there, everyone, so that you've got the teeny bits of pollen. Works very well when you're coming across a light area like this. And here you see, so have a think about where you might want that to be. Down there, I think, look. Because if it comes through this area so that I can do those little bits of pollen, that works. You can see it. This one, down through here. I'm going back to this idea of them draping, hanging down, aren't we? So this is what I want to do with them. Out here, I think, like that. Put some through here. This is a boring area, isn't it? So pull some through there. Little round circles on the top. This, we need something in here, so I'm going to pull them up like that. Just to make it more interesting. Something through here. So just use your imagination with that and go with that and go where you feel you need to. See, I think this is all a bit of something or nothing, so through there I'm going to drop in a few more and something up through there. This is the B, so I'm not worried about that, that's fine. That's all I'm going to do with that for now. Let's have a little think about our B. Payne's grey. And all we want to do here is just drop in, start with his head. There's the original D shape that we had. So I want a really dark edge to it, like that, and then water, just water, and pull it so that you have the lighter kind of highlight on his head, like that. Okay, kind of bring you in. You see what I've done? So the darker edge with a deep Payne's grey round the edge, and then just water in the middle to give you that lighter edge. Now, this is my quinacridone gold, this gorgeous scrummy yellow, and I want it quite thick because I want it almost orange, real sunshine yellow, and that I'm going to put in there for my Humble Bumble's back. So put the colour in, and then this is water which fades it, look. So again, that makes it look as though his back's curved, coming up into the light. And then we need the Payne's grey again, because we're going to come back to his bottom and down through here. Now this is a funny one, this is dark through there, and I'm just cutting it in so that it makes it look as though he's furry, bless him. And then he'd have a little bit of light bottom here. I'm going to do that. All right. And then, weird as it seems, I'm just going to do a bit of that. What's she doing, you say? Wait and see, I'll show you. The rest we'll do with a pen, I think, because that will give us control over that. If I come back to my pen, and I'm going to think about his wings. So that bit of dark there is going to be in the wing. So I'm bringing his wing down and through like that. So that'll be wing number 1. And then wing number 2 is going to come up, and that's going to come onto his back as well, like that. Right, so you've got these 2 shapes. Now, what I'm going to do with that is a teeny, tiny, tiny, eeny, weeny, teeny bit of the yellow, and I'm going to pull it through, and I'm going to smudge and smear that dark a bit, and then that will give you the feeling of sort of diaphanous wings. And with my ink, I'm going to go back round his head to make sure it stands out. And then of course little bees have 6 legs, and the first leg is really quite wide like that. It's heavy round the shoulders, it's been weightlifting. There you go. Right, and then all we're going to do is just a hint of the other legs. I don't want to see them, but I want to give a hint that they're there. That's all we're going to do. And then because I know that this is a pen that is, it runs with water. I'll get the words out in a minute. I've got the wrong teeth in, I'm breaking them in for the cat. I'm using that to give the impression of that's his bottom, that you can see through the wings. And then all I want to do is just put a couple of little lines through and across to make it look as though that's the light on the wings. And that's all I'm going to do to my little bumblebee. That is it. Now, as far as I'm concerned, we just need to tweak a few little bits. We're going to take some white. So if you've got some white gouache somewhere, now is the time to be getting it out. Those of you who know me know that I've got a little pussycat called Socks, and he loves cat milk, absolutely loves it. And I use this always for my white gouache, because I find that when I use this stuff, if you put it in your palette, it will mark your palette like Billy-O, and it doesn't come out. So therefore it's a good idea to keep it totally separate from everybody else and everything else, and to use it like this on its own. And we're looking at single cream consistency really. Make sure you haven't got your brush all cluttered up with it. So all I'm going to do is just roll my brush to get rid of all the muck around the edge of it. And then with the white, we're going to go in and add a little highlight on our bee's head and a couple of slithers of light on his wings. Now the other thing you could do with this, of course, is if it's convenient to you, you could do this job with a white pen. So there are plenty of nice white pens on the market that you could use to drop your highlights in. I mean, something like a gel pen, like this, Jelly Roll, fantastic. You could use this, and that stands out really well. I think that's probably one of the best ones, to be honest with you. And, you know, you could do these little fine details like that. Watch out for gouache, because it does tend to fade a little bit. It's really irritating. So with the white gouache, I'm going to come down this edge between the greens that I laid in earlier and just put down that white highlight, rinse, dab, dab, and come back and then blend. Let's do that on here as well. So I'm not going to do quite as much on here. So that's too thick, you see, it's not working, it's not running. Single cream consistency we need. So we're going to run it down there like that. Rinse, dab, dab, come in and just soften it. And this will fade out quite a bit, but that's okay because it will give you that diffused look, which is quite nice. That's all right, I don't mind that at all. So having reached this stage, what do we do with it now? We're going to look at it and we're going to see if we've got marks or anything on it that we don't like. I notice I put my mucky paws all over this area here. I don't know whether I can get that off. If I can't, I've got to do something with it. I've also got a splidge and a splodge here. All right, so what are we going to do about that? Let's have a think. What do you reckon? I've got some plans. Let's have a look, see what we can do with this. I like this Schminky Rich Pale Gold. It's powder, and the powder has got gum arabic in it, so this means that it should adhere to the paper with no problem whatsoever. I'm going to use some of that and I'm going to go back to my original colours. And with these, down here, I'm going to do a little bit of splishing and splashing and just have fun with it. I want to pop some water on first, down the areas that I want to hide. So down through there. And then I'm going in to, this is like a colour swatch. These are the colours that I've used on the work. So there's the very beautiful, oh that's lovely, isn't it? I really, really like Opera Rose. And then that will run into this rather gorgeous magenta. And then I'm coming into the green. I'm just going to let that do its own thing, because that's what it's best at. And whilst that's doing that, I'm just going to pick up some of that and drop it in. So that I've got this lovely glowing area over here. Now, so that that doesn't feel lonely and all alone and all on its own, I'm going to have a little bit of a bijou flick. So if I pick up, I'm going to diffuse it as well. So there, let me let that run. So in here, I'm going to pick up some of this really rather lovely Cascade Green. And I want some hard and some soft like that. And shall we have a little bit of the magenta as well, everyone? That'll do. And then what we could do, you see, if we wanted to, is into that glorious mess, we could just take a little bit of our gold and I could sprinkle that as well. Yum yum. And I'm going to leave the camera where it is because I think you can, for the minute, you can see that better with the light shining on it than if I should try and move you closer. I'll take close-up photographs of this so that you can see that when we're done. Now, what I'm going to do down here, where I've put my mucky fingers, I've got some brushes, some pen brushes. This is nothing special. Make sure it's just a brush that when you sprinkle a line with it and add water, it will run. Okay, excuse me, I've got the brush like that. And down here, I'm going to write Allium. A-L-L-I-U-M. And then I can bring my paintbrush across with some water on it, and not too much because it'll go mad. And I'm just going to get hold of it and I'm going to art it. My husband would say to me, "What are you doing? You're making a mess." It's up to you. You try it and you see what you like and how you want it to be. I'm going to put a bit of a shadow around that one, like that, and like that. And then if I come in here and I do that, keep it clean because otherwise you're just moving lots of mess around. And then that, I'm going to flick that back up like that. So I've hidden my mess both sides. And then the only other thing I want to do is write the legend under here. I'm going to use my lovely fine pen and I'm going to write what I've got, what it is, and its heritage. So be back in a minute. So to finish off, all I've done is written down here, I looked it up, I went to Wikipedia, and have discovered that Allium is a genus of monocotyledonous flowering plants. Oh, that's a word full, isn't it? In gardening circles, a lot of people just call it monocot, but monocotyledons, flowering plants including onion, garlic, scallion, shallot, leek and chives. And that's it, everyone. A nice little example of a beautiful kind of, I like doing this with things in the garden, you know, bringing them in and sitting down and working with them and not doing something too botanical, but something that makes it interesting and fun to paint. And this is a good way of doing it and of journaling it and of recording it for yourself, for your use. And when you take all of this off, it will look really lovely. Have a look, see what you think of this now that it's done.